in the creation of the universe.
It could be that Greeks just assume that human beings were always around, that human beings are in fact so important that there was never a stage when they didn't exist. It's still something of a mystery.
I like to think that Greek myth reflects a certain understanding by the Greeks of humans' place in the world, that humans are not the center of things, that there's a whole wealth of the created world into which humans have to fit. This is a great contrast with a number of other cultures and belief systems.
As with the dawn of the gods, Greek mythology contains different tellings of the creation of man. In none of them are mankind's beginnings auspicious.
We lived like ants in the ground, and we couldn't read, and we didn't know the seasons, and we didn't know the weather, and we couldn't think, and we couldn't hear. We were just despicable worms and worth despising.
In Homer's version of the creation of humans, the god Prometheus forms the first man out of mud and breathes life into him. In Hesiod's telling, Zeus creates succeeding races of men: gold, silver, bronze, and iron. It seems that each race symbolizes differing aspects of the human condition. The first race of men is made of gold. Their lives are easy, their crops abundant. They literally feast with the gods.
In the beginning, there was a golden age, and people lived on the earth, and all the crops grew of their own accord, and everybody was good, and everybody was just. And those people, after a while, just disappeared.
The golden race appeared to have lived a perfect existence, seemingly in paradise. And yet, this race vanishes without explanation. In the biblical account of paradise, life's hardships are seen as a result of Adam and Eve's fall from grace in the Garden of Eden. For the golden race of men in Greek mythology, there is no such explanation for their disappearance. The reason for their fate remains a mystery.
The Greek system in which humans and their creation are not really a topic of concern is so different from what you find in Genesis, where we have this focus on the creation of the first man. Of course, in Genesis, it's related to the further story, what happened after the first man and woman disobeyed God. In Greek myth, disobeying the gods is not such a big deal as it is in Genesis.
So why doesn't Hesiod have an answer, or why doesn't Hesiod give an answer to why the golden race came to an end with the Judeo-Christian myth of the fall from the Garden of Eden? Because that clearly was the fault of Adam and Eve. And what that means is there is no really good explanation for why the world is so difficult now, why humans can't have an easy time.
After the golden race becomes extinct, Zeus fashions men from silver, but this race is not very evolved.
The Silver Age people were babies forever, and then they had this short period of maturity, and then they had a horrible old age. And they disappeared under the earth. They were more arrogant and did not worship the gods sufficiently.
Next come men of bronze, who exterminate themselves through constant warfare. Eventually, the race of men who live today appears. They are said to be men of iron.
So basically, this story of degeneration has moved to the present age, where actually it shows a balance in these various views of the important things in life for the Greeks, namely your attitudes to the gods and your attitudes towards warfare and fighting for your city-state, and how you can get along or not get along with each other.
Interestingly, all these stories account for the creation of only half the human race, man. Woman is created as an affliction, a punishment, and all because of a trick.
The first woman was sent to the earth as a punishment to mankind. Now, this sounds incredibly misogynistic, and it was an incredibly misogynistic story on the part of Hesiod, who told this in 700 BC. But the story goes that one of the gods, Prometheus, tried to trick the master and king of all the cosmos, Zeus.
Prometheus is a trickster god. He's a smart god. Prometheus means forethought. He killed a sheep, and he took the sheep, and he took all the good, wonderful meat, and he put it inside the disgusting belly. And he took all the bare bones, and he wrapped them up in the beautiful white shining fat, which is, of course, what burns in a sacrifice. And he presented these two bundles to Zeus, and he said, "You pick."
Zeus knows he is being tricked by Prometheus, who represents humankind. In retaliation, Zeus punishes man by taking away fire. Prometheus, in return, steals the fire back and gives it to humanity.
And by stealing and giving men this gift of fire, he was therefore punished indirectly by having a woman created who was given to human beings. Now, Zeus didn't just sort of give this evil thing, as he thought, to mankind. He called it a beautiful evil.
She's one you can't do without. She's a kalon kakon in the terms of the Greek, a beautiful bad thing. And so Greek myth, Greek poetry likes to have it both ways. Women are beautiful. Women are something irresistible. At the same time, women make you work. And so they're a bad thing.
I do think that throughout Greek mythology, you see a repeated emphasis on the threat that women pose. The threat they pose because of your need for them, the need to have children, and the very real fear of losing control because of desire. Overwhelming feminine sexuality threatens men.
Zeus does not give just any woman to men. Indeed, he gives men a kalon kaikon, a beautiful evil. Her name is Pandora, and she comes with a jar full of evils to let loose in the world. The first woman in Greek mythology is Pandora, and her story echoes that of Eve and the forbidden fruit in the Garden of Eden. Given a jar and told not to open it, Pandora does so anyway. And all the evils of the world are let loose. All sickness, pain, suffering, disease. Too late, she closes the jar, leaving only one thing behind: hope. But what is hope doing in Pandora's jar full of evils?
Hope is there as an evil, which is, I think, fascinating. Hope is an evil because hope allows you to act with the sense that you can control the future. And in Hesiod, that is a very dangerous thing to do. You can't control the future, and it's to act under a delusion.
Is hope something good or something bad? And the Greeks loved this kind of dilemma because hope could be good, could be bad, and so it was ambiguously left back in the jar for humans to use or to avoid.
Pandora is perhaps the most prominent, but certainly not the only example of women being a source of evil in Greek mythology. Some scholars find a deeper meaning for this disparagement of women and point to Aphrodite, the goddess of love.
If you look at the myths of Aphrodite, who is the most beautiful and the most sexually desirable thing ever. Men are afraid of her. She sees a man, a human being, Anchises, on a hill outside of Troy, and she wants to sleep with him. And she goes to him, and he says, "You are too beautiful to be a human. You must be a goddess, and I don't want to sleep with you." And she says, "Oh no, I'm just a maiden from the neighborhood." They go to bed together, and when he wakes up, she's become her goddess self. And he's terrified. He's terrified he's going to be emasculated, that he'll lose his strength.
In contrast, the ancient Greeks believed that Athena, a goddess without a sexual role, is a great force for good.
Athena is the protector. Athena is the warrior divinity who leads the just defense war. She is the city goddess, and in many respects, the most important divinity the Athenians have. And that might be true for many other cities where you have an acropolis with a temple of Athena on top.
And thus the world of Greek gods and goddesses is not merely a collection of colorful stories, but a window on an ancient civilization, its thoughts and its values.
The kind of nonlinear thinking that you see in myths, the sort of narratives that leap all around, that introduce strange creatures, look a lot like dreams. And so the question, I think, is whether Greek myths are somehow the collective unconsciousness of Greek civilization at an early period.
Whether conscious or unconscious, the gods are very much present in the everyday lives of ancient Greeks.
In each of the mountains, in each of the plants, in each of the emotions they felt that there was a God in control behind this.
One of the attractive and unusual things about Greek religion from the beginning is its responsiveness to environment. There are nymphs, for example, who inhabit watery places. There are nymphs of the mountains, nymphs of the trees. There's an acknowledgement that rivers are a kind of religious force. And Greek religion in this way has a certain affiliation with modern ecology, the recognition that individual places have a value, a kind of numinous quality, a sacred quality.
The Greeks had particular terms for sacred. In fact, they had several terms for sacred. One of them is hieros. And hieros means that it belongs to the gods. In fact, the Greek word for religion is ta hierai, the sacred things.
And so the stories in Greek mythology are used to explain an often difficult and random world. Winter is born when Persephone, daughter of the goddess Demeter, is kidnapped by the god Hades and taken to the underworld to be his bride.
Demeter was horrendously upset to have lost her daughter and began searching the world looking for her daughter. Couldn't find her daughter, wept, cried, crops didn't grow, hence the gods weren't getting sacrificed. So finally, some gods went to Zeus and said, you've got to get Persephone back so our mother makes the crops grow so we get our sacrifices and all the people don't die.
Eventually, Persephone is allowed to return to her mother on one condition. Each year, Persephone must spend 3 months with Hades. It is during this time that her mother, Demeter, goddess of agriculture, is inconsolable. And thus, each year, the fields lie barren in the cold of winter. And thus, life's larger hardships were explained. Personal difficulties, however, were often explained by some offense to the gods. Those who offended the gods were punished, not by some earthly authority, but by the gods themselves.
There's a Greek word, in fact, desidaimonia, which means fear of the gods or respect for the gods. And this was a positive thing. Life